celibate. I'm taking a shot for my enemies. I can't waste no more time on my energy. I know they not got it on lock. Go against me, that's a long shot. Cause I'm counting wins all around the clock. Never doubt me, boy, I don't stop. Who do you feel when they make you the monster? I am not scared of none of you imposters. Taking the lead now while they watching. Think you should leave now while the option. Taking no else, yeah, I gotta win. Watch me kick down the doors, they won't let me in. I'm running the game now. Foot on the gas, can slow down, no.
Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier Podcast. It's your boy Mac, and tonight our Cleveland Cavaliers took on the Indiana Pacers for the Cavs' second game of the preseason. They would end up losing 129-117, but honestly, who the fuck cares about scores in preseason? Yeah, we want to see them win. I guess I can't. I guess I can't bullshit that much. I do want to see them win anytime they play, but I'm not really looking for win-loss marks in the preseason. I'm looking for development. I'm looking to see what guys have worked on over the offseason. I'm looking to see what some of these specific lineup combinations look like. And you know what? We got a very odd lineup tonight because most of the starters sat sans Jarrett Allen, and it was a great thing that he played, or it probably could have went even worse for this team. But man, it was some interesting basketball that was played tonight. We're going to touch on it all. We're going to speak about a few players here, but I mean, let's start with the starting lineup itself. It was an odd one. Like I said, we got Jerome starting in place of Darius Garland, Jaylen Tyson, much anticipated start at the shooting guard position with Donovan Mitchell also sitting. Dean Wade starting at power forward for Evan Mobley, who had the night off, and Okoro, who is taking the place of Max Strus, who is still out as of right now. And so with that starting five, what I was hoping to see tonight wasn't just Jaylen Tyson. Obviously, anytime Jaylen gets extended minutes and an extended look, that's great. Tyson ended up playing around 28 minutes and 33 seconds tonight, and he looked pretty damn impressive in that action. But what I was really wanting to see tonight was how Jerome would rebound after a pretty disappointing first game when he went 0 of 6 from three-point distance, and he did not disappoint tonight. And this is a player, mind you, that I have consistently been saying is going to make an impact for this Cavaliers team, dating back to last season when we only got to see him suit up for just 2 games. And I'm so damn glad that he has finally healed and ready to go, because at 6'5", 6'6", I truly believe that there's a lot of versatility with some of the lineups that you can play him at. And I know that he's not your typical creator. He is not necessarily a high-level facilitator, but he is a capable one. And that is what showed to me tonight. That is what was on full display from Jerome tonight, as he would finish with a stat line of 15 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists. I believe that was a team leading, might even have been game leading. Yes, it was a game high 8 assists from Jerome. He also with 5 of 14 from the field, including 2 of 7 from 3-point distance. And yes, I know that's not great necessarily when you're talking about his 3-point production, but the one thing that really, really sticks out to me was the facilitation from him. He was moving the ball. He was putting guys in good position. Anytime he saw a cutter out there, he was making sure that they received the ball in a good position, namely Okoro, Jarrett Allen, players like that. He had a very good rapport with these guys. And that was what I was hoping to see out of him. Yes, I want the three-point ball to drop, and I know that is going to come in time as he is still trying to work his way back. But as Tom Case has done here, Jerome looked like the solid backup point guard. And that brings to mind the question that I think many Cavaliers fans will probably start to have on their minds through these final 2 games of preseason, and that is, has Jerome done enough to warrant rotation minutes? Would you slot Craig Porter Jr. further behind on the depth chart behind Jerome? Because we already know Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, they're going to get the bulk of the point guard minutes, right? When one isn't on the floor, the other will be. They're probably going to spend time staggering each other's minutes so that one of them two is on the floor as probably as much as can be, so that both have an opportunity to lead the offense, especially after what we saw from Donovan Mitchell last season and his large stretches without Darius Garland on the floor, where he put up 7+ assists. Phenomenal sight from him. last season. And I think we're all hoping to see more of Mitchell as the lead guard. But it is good to know that you have multiple options beyond Darius, beyond Donovan, that can conduct the offense. Whether you're talking about Karis LeVert, who did not play tonight, whether you're talking about Ty Jerome, who, we're finally getting to see more and more of, Craig Porter Jr., Jaylen Tyson, you name them. There's a couple other guys on the roster that are fully capable of initiating offense as well, but it is very, very helpful to know that in the event that an injury is suffered or you just need to get a different lineup combination out there, that you have these guys that have some of these skill sets that overlap so that you can use them accordingly and how you need to. And we know that with Kenny Atkinson kind of going deeper into his rotations than JB Bickerstaff ever did, that it's a pretty large possibility that Ty Jerome and Craig Porter Jr. will both see minutes at various points this year. But if you put a gun to my head right now, which I hope none of you would ever do that, obviously, I would have to say Ty Jerome, just strictly based upon the shooting ability that he has and the size advantage that he has over Craig Porter Jr., that might give him a leg up. I mean, Craig, that he is no slouch himself. He showed a lot last year, and I remain a huge fan of Craig Porter Jr. And I'm not trying to take preseason into too much consideration, but I mean, you see what Ty Jerome can do when given consistent minutes out there. He has control over the offense. He legitimately looks poised out there, and that size, to me, that's a big deal, especially when you're playing in such an undersized backcourt already with Donovan and Darius. And Craig, right? I mean, these are not tall players. Ty Jerome is taller than all three of them. And while that might sound silly to say, sadly, it's the reality at that position. So just based upon what we have seen from him in years prior and now in this preseason, I don't think it's far-fetched to believe that he may have taken back his role from Craig Porter Jr. after Craig Porter Jr. looked like he was well on his way to earning a rotation spot this season. So I don't know. I do not know where we are at in that regard on that front, but I am very, very curious to see which direction that Kenny Atkinson is going to go in, because as you heard numerous times on the broadcast, there's like 12, maybe 13 players on this roster that are probably deserving of minutes who may not, all of them are not going to be able to play. There are going to be at least one or two guys left out in the wind, right? Just left sitting on the bench. And that sucks, but it's an unfortunate reality of playing on a team that is very, very deep at specific positions. Tom K says backup center other than Mobley feels like it might be an issue. Absolutely is. And that is why I was glad that at least one center opposite Tristan Thompson played tonight in Jarrett Allen. And yeah, JT Thor can soak up some minutes there from time to time, but he is not a true center. He's just versatile enough to play minutes there. The Cavaliers just do not have many real bigs on the roster that are capable of doing that. So when Mobley's not suiting up and you're having to rely just on Tristan and on Jarrett, you're putting yourself at risk of further injuries with Jarrett and just trying to place too much responsibility on him. But Jarrett looked phenomenal tonight. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but just to put a nice little bow on the Ty Jerome conversation, one of the things that I absolutely loved from him tonight, in the absence of that three-point stroke being efficient, was the fact that he was so willing to drive into the heart of the defense, attack inside, and just draw contact. And I know that the foul calls, I believe Ty only took 3 free throw attempts tonight in his 22 minutes of action, but he drew a lot of contacts, and he had some elusiveness to him, and it was just nice to see him go out there and, not be afraid of falling on his ass or, taking that contact. That's something that you have to be able to do at that guard position. You can't be afraid of contact, but it was really nice to see. So I'm happy that Ty Jerome looks much, much better than he did in his preseason debut. But we'll have to, keep it carrying on to this next preseason game against, I believe, Detroit. So we'll see what he looks like next time out. As Tom says down here, Allen carried the team. So what better place to start? Well, what better place to continue than with him? Jarrett Allen would finish tonight with 13 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. He was 6 of 8 from the field, and there is no complaints. I have no complaints about what I saw from Jarrett Allen tonight. The dude was absolutely everywhere out on that court tonight when he played, and he only suited up tonight for about little under 15 minutes, and just to have a stat line like that in 15 minutes, that's pretty damn good. He had a couple of nice little jams over Miles Turner. He had a couple of lob attempts. I think he even saw him take a midi tonight, something that he has rarely used. But I think in the Kenny Atkinson era, he's probably going to start taking that shot a little bit more. And then on the defensive end, looked as poised as ever. He didn't have any blocks tonight, but his rim protection is definitely extends beyond simple blocks. He is a deterrent unto himself into that painted area. He scares players away. He has the ability to reject shots at the drop of a hat. And the matchup between himself and Miles Turner is always one to watch. Turner himself would finish with 12 points, 3 boards, 2 assists on 5 of 10 from the field, and 3 from 3-point distance. And that last part is like the biggest separator between Allen and Turner. That 3-point shot, that is what gets Turner ranked ahead of Allen on some people's rankings because of his ability to space the floor. But as has been pointed out to me and to numerous other fans at points in time, it's not like Turner's taking that shot with high volume. He is literally just taking it from above the break. The above the break triple is one of the most common in the NBA. And for a big man such as himself, it's not something that's unheard of, unseen. You don't see a lot of bigs out there standing out in the corners. That above the break triple is something that is heavily utilized by bigs. I think of Brook Lopez a lot when I see that. But just to watch the matchup between those two, that's something that is always going to be exciting. And something that really stood out to me tonight was the fact that Indiana rolled out a pretty strong lineup, and they didn't necessarily beat the crap out of the Cavs like I thought they would. They rolled out Nesmith, Siakam, Turner, Andrew Nembhard, and obviously Tyrese Halliburton as their starter. And while their starters didn't play any more than about 18 minutes, it still goes without saying that they probably should have whooped up on the Cavs tonight between the roster changes and lineup changes that they had out there. I mean, they're playing second and third stringers. I thought this game was definitely going to be much, much worse than it was. Mr. Red Pants says, "What's up, Mac? Kept switching between guards and Cavs. Loves how this Cavs team looks. Enjoy Atkinson's energy and vibe." Me too, man. And he also says, "Oh, and book it game 5 at Progressive." Yeah. I think people are really, really excited about the guards in game 5. We'll see what will happen there. But for the Cavs, Atkinson's influence in his coaching, the philosophies, they're definitely felt by the fan base, by the players, obviously themselves. But you can definitely tell a difference between a Kenny Atkinson coach team and a JB Bickerstaff coach team already. And that's, again, no slight against JB. But you can clearly tell there are some stylistic differences here, namely when you're talking about the 3-point attempts, which is something that Kenny was very, 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 very detailed and descriptive upon how he wanted to approach that in relation to the pace and how many attempts he would like to get up. But the one thing that I have found that has been one of the biggest eye openers is the fact that this team is actually getting into their sets a lot quicker. There is no time wasted on possessions. Constantly during the Bickerstaff era, one of the things that annoyed me the most was the simple fact that the Cavaliers would wait until there was like 7, 8, sometimes 9 seconds left on a singular possession to initiate a set. And it's like, okay, how do you expect to get the most out of your possessions when you are playing that way? You're not putting guys in good positions. It allows for not enough ball movement. There's just not enough possessions in a game to really feel like everybody's touching the ball when you're getting into your sets that slowly. And with Kenny Atkinson, it's kind of like the complete opposite of that. In game 1, they played at a pace of 117. That's 117 possessions. That is, to me, insane, right? That, to me, that is something that is a massive difference between the way that Atkinson and Bickerstaff operate. Nate says, what are the central tenets of the motion/flow offense that Kenny wants to run? I think it's motion based, right? You're going to see a lot of staggering. You're going to, and you've been seeing that not only tonight, but you saw that in game one. Guys initiating pin downs. You saw Dean Wade take that one. Take that mid-range shot, which he made, I believe, in the first game against Chicago. But there is a lot of movements, a lot of moving parts. There is a lot of falses that allows you, if one thing isn't there, you can pivot quickly to another one. And the biggest thing that sticks out to me is, okay, let's say you have Evan Mobley at the elbow or down in the low post, and you pass him the ball. He is looking for a cutter. If a guy is coming off of a screen or going around a screen, say Sam Merrill or Max Strus, if one of those guys is coming around a screen, it does not have a clean look. He can then get the ball passed to him and find that guy on the move and cutting to the basket. Mr. Red Pen says, I posted on your Twitter, it's a joy to see Atkinson at press conference when we're so used to JB and Stefanski. No shade either. Took a double take before I realized that was Ty Jerome. He's real. Yeah. Ty Jerome is very, very articulate with how he answers questions. That's something that I can definitely appreciate. He's detailed about in regards to some of the responses that are given, and Kenny Atkinson is much the same way, though some of the metaphors that he uses can come off a little odd. He had one earlier today, I think Spencer Davies of Cavs Insider posted it, and shout out to Spencer. He's awesome covering the Cavs. But one of the quotes that was pulled today was a very, very rough metaphor that Atkinson used. I'm not going to dig into the specifics of it, but it had to do with parking and whatnot. It was a little odd, but at the end of the day, I understand what he was trying to say. And that is refreshing when you're not just getting coach speak, you're getting detailed descriptions of what is happening on possession to possession. You're getting detailed descriptions of what they actually want to do out there on both sides of the ball. And that is refreshing, because in the JB Bickerstaff era, if he was asked a very specific question, he did not often have a very detailed response to it. It was very general, very non-specific. Tom K says, Kenny didn't seem to piss off the refs either. Yeah, I mean, we're only 2 games in. There's a lot of time left for that to happen. But Kenny, would appear to have a better relationship with refs. And I think that's kind of an underrated part of coaching at the NBA level, probably at any level, but at the NBA level specifically, because it's the one that we have the most visibility to. You don't often see coaches and refs interact the way that JB and refs interacted last year. You have to build a rapport with these guys. You have to be able to speak their language sometimes. You got to work them. You got to work the refs sometimes. And the arms folded, just the demeanor that JB always had last year when dealing with the refs, when he didn't like a call out there, he felt like the Cavaliers were not getting calls, which may or may not have been a valid concern. But at the same time, you clearly see the relationships that he has with refs is clearly different than the one that Atkinson seems to have. So oh, sorry, his comment, top tier. Nate says JB was an elite Karen. I don't know if I've ever seen a better comment in relation to JB Bickerstaff, but I get it. I totally understand it. So that explains it all right there, right? He just did not have a good relationship with the refs. And hopefully that is not going to end up being the case long term with Kenny, but we're only 2 games in. There's a lot of time left. Nate also says, could this offense unlock Okoro's game? He has shown he is good at attacking closeouts. As I understand, the offense asks their off-ball players to do a lot more than usual offenses. Yes, and so this also goes into like rebounding, cutting, what we have constantly heard, especially during training camp from Kenny and from the players themselves, is that you're not just standing around. You're not in the corners. And that's something that Okoro was constantly doing last season, sometimes through no fault of his own, just because there was a lack of creativity on how to get the ball in specific players' hands and how to use guys to their specific strengths. And Okoro, one of his best strengths is as a cutter, is out in transition, is on the move. And so when you're off ball, as Okoro will likely be for much of this season, you have to find ways to be impactful. And Kenny Atkinson's offense encourages that off-ball movement. Like I said, there is a lot of actions that require staggers. There are a lot of DHOs, a lot of dribble handoffs, right? You've constantly seen that now with Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen a lot tonight. We actually got to see Isaac Okoro rim running. We got to see him screen and roll, right? He was the roll man in the pick and roll on at least one set tonight that I could probably pull up, and I'm not going to waste time doing it right now. But go back and watch the game. I promise you will see it. That is one of the things that Kenny mentioned that he wants to be able to do with the Okoro because of how strong he is, and how quick in transition that this dude is. And in the half court, if you're going to be using him that way, he can get downhill. He can get to the basket. And we saw him do that on at least one possession tonight. So that was pretty damn cool. And so that just leads me to believe that off ball, we're going to see Okoro thrive more than we ever have, even if that 3-point shot is not dropping for him. And I get it. Like the last season was a career best for him in terms of 3-point percentages, but the volume wasn't there. And one of the biggest ways that you can get around that whole volume conversation is by getting him looks at the basket. And if he is moving downhill off of screens or off of cuts, that is one way that you can make him a valuable addition to this team. And that is one way that you can get around some of the spacing concerns that you have. Seriously, that is one way to create space, especially in the front court. Okoro in specific would finish the night with 9 points, 4 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 steals, and went 4-6 from the field, including 1 of 2 from 3-point range. And that was in about 25 minutes of action. And while I do want to see him attempt that 3 a little bit more, I can live with it if he is able to provide in other areas, because truth be told, there isn't much to complain about if he is able to put up points at the basket, at the rim, as a cutter, as an elite transition finisher. Guys like that, that also are elite point of attack defenders, don't grow on trees. And so it was really, really nice to see Isaac Okoro play the way that he did tonight. And I do believe, just hearkening back to Nate's comment down here, I do believe that this type of offense will facilitate Okoro, quote unquote, being unlocked, right? Nate says Dean Wade doing his Dirk impression. Yeah, that fadeaway, right? Loved it. I just want to see more of that on a consistent basis, but it's probably just going to boil down to some of the lineup combinations that we get, because Okoro may not be in a position to, pick and roll. If Jarrett and Evan are sharing the floor with him, I'm not sure if that is going to be the case. It could be, but we'll have to see. What else did we see tonight? We got to see Jaylen Tyson impressing, right? I mentioned his name a couple of times already, but one of the things that I absolutely adored about the game that we got from Tyson tonight was the rebounding. Like, this dude, not only I posted this on Twitter, but it remains true. It's one thing to grab rebounds and be good at it. It's a whole other thing to actually want to get in there, get your hands dirty, and battle and duke it out for rebounds. There are some guys that just don't strike me as wanting to do that. And those players when you see them. They do not try to rebound at all. They do not put themselves in the proper position. They don't box out particularly well. They don't give a lot of effort in that particular category. Jaylen Tyson is not that guy. You will see him sky for rebounds, not only on the defensive end, but you will see him attempt to get some offensive rebounds too. And as a guard, forward, whatever you classify Tyson as, it's damn impressive at his height of 6'5", 6'6", whatever you want to call him. But he has a motor, and despite not being like a high level, high quality athlete, he is constantly out there bouncing and trying to eat on the glass. And it was just lovely to see from him tonight. Outside of the point production, he would grab 6 rebounds, which is tied for the team high with Jarrett Allen and Luke Travers, who is also another quality rebounder at that wing position. So I just keep being impressed. I keep finding ways to be impressed with this young man, and I just think that he is simply too good to continue to be held up on the bench for too long. And we have consistently talked and heard it talked about that that Kenny Atkinson wants to go 10, 11 deep in this rotation. And in saying that, you look on down the roster, you look at the depth chart, and it is honestly quite understandable that Jaylen Tyson may not get minutes initially, but the way that he is playing, the emotion and the willingness to do some of the things that he does, it's going to earn him a spot in this rotation sooner or later. And one of the things that we heard during training camp was that his former head coach, Mark Matson, over at Cal, said he basically told Kenny Atkinson on draft night, like, this dude is going to be in your rotation sooner rather than later. And I'm finding more and more reasons to believe that to be true. I don't know who it's going to come at the expense of. I have a solid idea of who it might come over at the expense of, but I don't truly know. And I think it's going to bring about some uncomfortable conversations. It's going to spark some controversy upon who should be in the rotation, who should be out, and if the Cavaliers should move on from specific players. And I'm sure you guys can all infer who I'm talking about. In case you can't, I'm going to spell it out for you. It's Caris LeVert. To me, I think that is the natural progression of things, especially with LeVert being in the final year of his deal. I think they'll capitalize on that and move off of his contract. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to tell. It is just preseason. We can't overreact too much. As much as we try and stop ourselves from doing that, it's going to happen though. So Tyson, to put a bow on that, I just believe that this dude is going to earn his way into the rotation sooner rather than later. All these little things that he does, it's impossible to keep a guy down for too long when they do that. So time will tell. He has the unfortunate, the unfortunate, I don't even know what words to utilize. He is just in a position right now where the Cavaliers may not be able to afford him minutes officially because of some of the guys ahead of him. When you're talking about Max Strus, Sam Merrill, Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, I mean, you name it, Ty Jerome, there are a couple players that are already ahead of him on the depth chart, but I don't think it's going to remain that way for right now. I mean, for too long, rather. Nate says, who will function as the backup for Mobley for playmaking hub / versatile defense power forward that the motion offense uses, to my understanding? Or will we just use a spot up like Dean Wade? I don't think you have much of an option, right? Because the options right now at that power forward position are Dean Wade. And if you're talking about backups, they're Dean Wade, George Niang, who is not necessarily a movement type shooter, and potentially JT Thor if converted. I don't know what else you're really going to do unless you're going to run some small ball lineups with Okoro at the 4, as we have seen. We saw that in the Magic series, or possibly Jaylen Tyson as a small ball 4. I just don't think that you're going to be able to really do too much else, right? I think that at the end of the day, Wade is probably the best option to go with here because of the fact that he offers you the best balance of that floor spacing and defense. He is a legitimate defender out there. He can space the floor. He had a career year last year in that regard, but he's got to stay healthy. That's always the biggest caveat with Dean. So time will tell. And I think the way that Atkinson is even using Dean, just to harken back to the pin down that we saw the other day into the midi jumper. It's not something that we saw from Dean Wade last year. If Kenny is really creative and trying to get the most out of specific players, it'll be very, very interesting. So I don't know. And he says maybe they'll ask Dean Wade to do some more offensively, hence the fader tonight. Yeah, I mean, you're spot on when it comes to that. I think they're going to ask all of these guys to do some things that they may not have done before, or they may not be totally comfortable doing. But I think it will work to the benefit of not only the player for adding to their game, but to the offense as a whole as well. And then Nate says, say what you will about Niang, but he can attack a closeout and hit a tough layup, something I haven't seen Dean do. So the crazy thing about Niang, and we saw this even from him last year when he was, it felt like Niang was just overweight. I'm going to call a spade, but Niang quietly and ugly, like, very, very, it just looked unnatural, but he did this very, 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 very well last year, where he actually put the ball on the floor and drove inside and attacked the heart of the defense, right? He went up for layups. Didn't look the prettiest. He would often result in him falling on his ass and, doing one of these numbers with his legs up and whatnot. I think Tony Pesta has that posted and a whole reel of that, but it often resulted in the G-Wagon, making the shot, right? It wasn't something necessarily that looked the prettiest, but it was effective. And he actually looks like he's in much better shape this time around. I think that has been confirmed through numerous media outlets. And he legitimately does look thinner out there. But I say all that to say that is something that he has in his bag that we haven't necessarily seen from Dean Wade on a consistent basis. He can attack the closeout. Okoro can do that as well. But between the two, which you're talking about Dean and Niang is much better in that regard. But I don't even know if Niang will be in the rotation. It's tough, man. It is really, really tough to predict what rotation Kenny is going to go with, because you have so many options that do similar things for one, and guys that fit into very specific roles. Niang, to me, you got to glue him at the power forward position. I do not want to see Niang playing minutes at the 3 like we saw last year. I do not want to see Niang playing any minutes at the 5. I just don't want to see that. So I hope Kenny doesn't get too wacky with his lineups. Mr. Redpan says, so who is not back from last year? Is it just Marcus Morris and Isaiah Mobley? Damian Jones as well. Damian Jones signed over, I think, in the CBA, right? Is he in the Chinese Basketball Association? I could be mistaken, but I know Damian Jones isn't back. I think that was really legitimately outside of Morris and Isaiah Mobley. I think those are the only guys that are not from last year's roster, or not back rather from last year's roster. So I don't know. I was trying to rack my brain the other day and figure out why the team didn't re-sign Isaiah Mobley, but I mean, I get it. They just did not see enough from him, I guess, at the NBA level to warrant bringing him back. But I think we're in a good place. I like the young talent that is on the roster right now. When you're talking about JT Thor and you're talking about Travers, Porter Jr., throw Tyson in there, Amani Bates is still there. And it kind of sucks that Amani is hurt right now, because tonight would have been a perfect opportunity to get him like real good minutes with some of the guys that he would have potentially been playing with the Charge for most of the season. And he could have played alongside the starters for a couple of minutes. So it kind of sucks that we did not get to see Amani. Mr. Redpan says, Damian Jones was a good dude, super nice and available for autographs and interactions. Good luck to him. Yeah. I had no problems with Damian, other than he just did not appear to be a really great fit for what we're trying to accomplish here. Nate says the Warriors offense used a lot of post-ups, correct? Last year, Cavs were among the lowest in post-ups last year. Yeah, and through the first game, like, you saw Evan Mobley doing that, backing his defenders down, and you even saw Jarrett Allen doing some of the same things tonight and against Chicago as well. And the hook shot was a huge part in doing that. So you hopefully Kenny Atkinson utilizes both Evan and Jarrett to their strengths, because we know that these guys are very, very capable. Because in the years prior, that was a big part of their offense. But in getting infatuated with space on the floor and rim running and becoming a lob threat, things of that nature, it just became less and less of something that was utilized for this team. And I understand it because they're not trying to clog the paint up. If you're constantly having both of your bigs down there and you're not real creative with how you're doing it, then post-ups are probably going to die out. So it was really, really, really interesting to see them do that in these first 2 preseason games. But beyond Ty Jerome, beyond Jaylen Tyson, beyond Isaac Okoro and Jarrett Allen, if I didn't already mention him, there were some other observations tonight. You did get to see Jules Bernard knock down some shots, man. I not very familiar with Jules Bernard, I have to admit, but it looks like he has a cannon on him. He took 7 triples tonight, knocked down 3 of them. That's good for 42.9%. So that was pretty damn impressive. And towards the end of that the midpoint of that fourth quarter and beyond, when the Cavaliers were trying to catch up and, get back into the game, he was gunning. And it looked very J.R. Smithy out there. So we'll have to see if they like him enough to, place him down there with the charge, or if I don't know how all that works out. I'm not going to bullshit you. The Cavaliers already have all their 2-way contracts signed, so it's not like they can go that route. But I think with the exhibit 10 is an exhibit 10 contract he has. I think that would entitle them to place him with the charge. I think they can make that designation on there, but don't quote me on that. I'm not real detailed and really into how all that works. I'm not in tune with how all of that works, but I would assume that they are probably going to see if they can get him down with the charge, but we'll have to see. But other than some of these things that we already talked about, man, there just wasn't much else to really warrant much attention. All the starters, sans Jarrett Allen, were out, and we were just looking to see extended looks at some of these guys that we haven't quite gotten to see for large stretches of time. So tonight was really, really good opportunity to do that with guys like Tyson and Jerome and Luke Travers, who I've just become infatuated with the idea of him developing long term into one of a rotation caliber wing and just all around glue guy. And just this man just constantly finds ways to be impactful out there. But I think this is probably a good place to leave it at. As I always tell you guys, if you'd like to reach out, you know how you can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you want to be added to this Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot of said review to itscavalier53@gmail.com, and I'll send you an invite. If you want to support support this channel in a small but helpful way, consider becoming a member over on Patreon. The link to that is in the description. That said, go Cavs. Y'all have a good night.